still a long journey. I'm still on it. And, like it goes through phases. And I sometimes have to go back and reread my contract that I wrote to myself, that I choose me to love me forever and always.
Right.
And that if I can't love who I am and what I have to offer, then nobody else can love who I am and what I have to offer. If Because without me, there's no me to love.
Welcome to the Beyond Wellness podcast. I'm here with Amy Levesque, a registered hypnotherapist with us at Wellington Natural Health. How are you doing, Amy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here today, Rose. I'm so
For
excited.
sharing. Amy has a passion for self-love. She has gone through her own journey, which she'll tell us a little bit about. But this is something that really stands true, I think, for a lot of people and trying to figure out like how and why and where and all of those things, because self-love can look so different for everybody, can't it?
Totally, totally. Like self love can be anything and everything. Um, just to dive into like a little bit of my story, I was in a relationship. I got married, um, and I, nearing the end of our relationship, was like craving more things from him, and maybe he wasn't able to give it to me, or he was giving it to me but it wasn't what I needed. And then once we kind of ended our relationship, I took a self-love class and I went and discovered how to fall back in love with me. Like there's so much like societal like conditioning that we go through, like growing up, being a teenager. Like I was, made fun of for always having a bigger hips and people would like, and especially guys would make fun of me for that. And like, so my self-confidence going into this relationship wasn't where it should have been because I didn't love who I was. And so starting this journey, I started it in 2019, after my marriage ended. And it started off with a lot of tears, a lot of realizing that I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know who I am, what I have to offer, no confidence, nothing. Um, and
Must
so
have been a really difficult time for you.
it was hard. I was also in like a transition period of like losing friends and then gaining new friends. And it was a lot of hard times.
Mhm.
But I'm so grateful that I came across the women that I did during that time. They were able to support me and guide me into finding out who I am. um, yeah.
So this class that you took, tell us a little bit about that. What was significant of that for you?
So the significance of it was like just owning in on my own stuff, like realizing the layers upon layers upon layers of like conditioning that I had of like, I need to morph into somebody that someone else can love. I don't necessarily love that person. I don't love who I am and what I'm showing up as, but it makes the other person feel good.
Right? Just being who you
Okay.
think they need you to be.
Yeah. So like I was like a chameleon. I was just blending in. I was going with the flow. Like, oh, you want me to be purple and pink today? Sure, yeah. I'll be purple and pink. No big deal.
Even if you hate purple and pink, you'll do it
Exactly.
anyway.
And so it's just like realizing that, if people want me purple and pink, well, actually, I'm like yellow and purple. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and showing up is what that is. And learning, like, even self love is like setting boundaries and learning to say no. And that's okay.
Now, is that just boundaries with yourself or boundaries with other people?
Both.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because you set boundaries with yourself. Okay, well, yes, this person makes me feel good to hang out with, but am I doing it because it makes I feel good hanging out with them, or like vice versa? Like like, or maybe you get invited out to go do something and you don't necessarily feel like going that day.
Right.
Oh, you know what? I don't really want to go shopping with you today. I'm just gonna hang out at home instead. Like being able to say no and not feel bad
How were
is
you
like a
able to
way to,
find How were you able to find your own boundaries if you didn't quite know who you were?
yeah. So through my journey of like loving myself, like doing the work, shedding and releasing the hurt, the hurtful words that were said, the really harsh expectations that I set on myself,
Mhm.
and maybe even like the silent expectations that were kind of put on me during my marriage. Um, and being able to release that. And part of self love is a lot of forgiveness, being able to forgive myself for what I've done, what I've put myself through, maybe the situations that I probably shouldn't have been in, but I did anyways. Um, and then blinking. And then
There's a lot of things to go through. It's like looking at all of your conditioning and your programming for as far back as you're like even capable of going, to be perfectly honest, but
totally
then choosing a point to start at, knowing that you're going to have to go deeper and farther back, but you got to start somewhere. Right? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but like just at least trying to figure out where you're going to be happiest, and then one day at a time, one situation at a time. You can't fix everything
no, it's
all
not a
in
like, I'm still in the
simultaneous.
process of learning and loving who I am. Like I've been able to conquer and get over like the body dysmorphia that I had. Like thinking because I was told forever that I was fat and ugly and not worthy of anything or any good relationships. So being able to get over that, like I started loving myself without makeup on, and coming from like a makeup background,
Hmm.
um, that's hard. Being able, like I have like blonde eyelashes, blonde eyebrows, and being able to go out in public without mascara and eyebrows on was huge for me. It was
Yeah.
such a struggle. And I was so uncomfortable and so vulnerable in those positions because it was something that I would use makeup just to cover up.
Hmm.
Um, and now I'm able to do that. So I like praise myself for that because that's something that I was never able to do growing up. And so being able to now as an adult, be like, oh, I don't feel like putting on mascara today. Okay, bye. Just go out the door. Like,
It's gonna be lovely old me walking
yeah.
around.
And it's like, it's so empowering to feel comfortable in your own skin, and to be able to feel comfortable in the clothes that you want to wear and not necessarily like have to cover up like, oh, I'm going to wear something frumpy because my butt looks big today. No, wear those tight pants that show up your great butt. Like do it. Like embrace what you have. Like I've always had curves. I've always had cellulite. I've, never had abs and have muffin tops. And it's just like
Well,
being
there's
able
ads
to
in
just
there somewhere.
yeah. So just
Yeah,
being able to like love all of it. And part of the self-love class, like I always give at the end of the class, a body oil that I make. I Reiki infuse. It usually consists of some sort of mix of rose, jasmine, lavender, rose quartz, and just like a body oil. So then you can go in and like really touch those places and get comfortable with touching your body. Like for me, that was a huge thing. I didn't want to touch my body. I didn't want I didn't want to touch it because I was so disgusted by it.
right. For drawing
And
attention to the places you don't love, right?
yeah, and then so but like how could I be in a relationship and expect somebody else to love my body if I don't even love my body and I don't feel good in it?
Right.
Um so even just doing that, like getting out of the shower, getting out of the bath and just like really like diving in, okay, I'm going to like start with my feet and massage my feet and get into there, massage my ankles, work up my legs, get into like my sensitive areas like my thighs and my hips and my butt, and like really saying, hey, you know what? I love this part of me. This is amazing. This is good. Like, look how much, like, it has never hurt me. It's always been there to support me. It
Yeah.
has never done anything, bad. It's just existed. And
Yeah.
now to like honor that. And within that, I was able to wear things like crop tops that I would never wear in
Mhm.
my like early 20s because I couldn't, or like um yeah, like the tight pants and Nope. I'd always make sure my butt was covered because it was such an insecurity.
Right. Has it always
Hmm.
been body focused for you?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Body focused. Because I was just a lot of my teenage years of like, everyone back in the day in like the late 90s, early 2000s was like everyone was skinny and their bean poles. And that was what society deemed as beautiful and perfect.
Right.
Whereas now everyone is equal, it doesn't matter the shape or size, which
Right.
is so beautiful and I love it. And it's so much more empowering. But growing up in those times, it was hard, especially if you have like a low self esteem and like a low self worth,
Right.
for sure.
Well, there are so many aspects to what people should look like or shouldn't look like or should act like or shouldn't act like. And um, there's too much exposure to everybody else. So
Totally.
sometimes I wish like just a little bit of the internet or a little bit of the social media would just disappear enough for people to realize that like, someone on the other side of the world shouldn't dictate how you feel about yourself. Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So for you, you're saying, it was focused a lot on your body, your self love, and like, you know, touching yourself and being kind to yourself and being okay with who you are just naturally.
Hmm.
Um, but like, how can there's so many different ways that people can, let's just be honest, dislike themselves,
Oh,
right?
1000%.
Right. So how can self love be different for different people? How can like there must have been like a mental health component to all of that. There must have been how you act. Like it's not just all going to be either in here or just hating all of it. It's going to be a little bit of everything for everybody. Do you think?
Totally. Like, I think there's so many different components to it, and it all depends on how you were raised and how you were conditioned growing up. And because everybody, doesn't matter what you say, will like dislike one part of themselves, whether it's a physical
Something.
part, a mental part.
Yeah.
Um, there's always going to have that, those little inklings of like bad thoughts will always cross your mind. Hey, you know what? I'm not good at this today. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Or like that, like just like that self doubt. And so it can come across in so many different ways for different people. And, but just to know that there's people out there to support you to get through it and like to really like unfold and like air out those little dark places that need to get air into so it can heal and so that you can change and you can be who you authentically are.
Right.
Um,
And just because you don't feel like you're good at something or feeling very good one day doesn't mean you're worthy of anything less than you were before that happened, or
yeah,
will be less worthy tomorrow. Like people are still there for you, or you can always still ask for help or be there for
totally.
yourself to some capacity, right?
And like I go through days like where it's like, oh yeah, I feel great. I feel awesome. Look at this, look at that. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm like bloated today. I probably shouldn't eat those 3 donuts. But you
But
know
they
what?
were so
They
good.
had extra sprinkles. So
Finding
it's
the
like,
little
and then
small
you're like,
things, eh?
get back into that body shaming. And then I'm just like, no, I ate 3 donuts. Oh, well, tomorrow maybe I'll look better.
Right. So for a lot of people, I know we kind of chatted about myths and all these different things, but like everything can be so oversimplified, but at the same time so over exaggerated, right?
Hmm.
So, you just saying the topic self love, everybody's going to be like, yeah, yeah, bubble bath, or yeah, yeah, some, I don't know, retail therapy or something along those lines. But it can go so much deeper than that, can it not?
Totally. Totally. Like it has to go deeper. If you really want to make that change, it has to go deeper to like a soul level, to like a subconscious level, being able to go in and change those thoughts and to change those ways of being.
Mhm.
It's not just as simple as a bath. Yes, don't get me wrong, there could be a day where you're like, yeah, I just need a bath today,
Yeah.
or like I need to eat that piece of chocolate or whatever. But really owning in and saying, okay, well, I want to figure out why. Why do I feel this way? So going in, like for me, like with my hypnotherapy background, coming in and like being able to for me to put somebody into hypnosis to like really get to those blockages of like why they don't love themselves.
Mhm.
And sometimes they don't even know. They have no
Right.
idea. But through like hypnotherapy and getting into like your subconscious, like you're able to unload different layers of your subconscious mind, which like affects your entire being. And sometimes you don't even know why it even affects it.
Right. That can be a scary place for people to have to choose to go, though. Like, how do you
Totally.
get yourself to that point where you're like, actually, I'm going to dig and I'm going to make myself hurt today? You know what I mean? Like, that's a super
It takes
bold comment, but still
a
sometimes.
really good, strong support system. It takes
Right.
like as much as like, you're supposed to be doing this. You're not supposed to be doing this on your own. Like I've seeked out help. I've seen hypnotherapists.
Mm.
I've gone to classes. I've gone to spiritual healers and have worked through. And it's like literally a layer after layer. And once you start digging down, the deeper and deeper you go, the lighter and lighter you start to feel. But it's not an
Right.
overnight thing. Like, and it's hard. You have to be devoted. You have
How
to
did
want this really bad.
how did you get yourself to the point where you actually wanted to ask for help? Because some people don't have that natural support system, and I do feel that at some point you've got to get either so low or so sad or so something where you're like, you know what, I need to actually ask someone to support me. Like, how did you
I think I
come
was
to
just
that
so
conclusion?
broken. I was so broken and I was so lost, um, that I was literally just picking at anything I could. And like I said, like the gateway to this was
Mhm.
this workshop that I participated in, and the woman who was guiding it is now one of my best friends. And um, and so like to have her guidance, like you are put into people's paths because they're there to help you. And from her, I was able to meet a whole bunch of other spiritual women who were maybe going through the same thing that I was, or have already been through a separation and are also journeying the same things and learning how to love who they are. Like I didn't know who I was. I actually lost friendships because I changed so significantly as a person. So, um, being able to trust that people come into your life. Like I didn't know any of these women that have helped me along my way. I was just like started with one class. It started with me showing up for me and knowing that I didn't want to feel lost anymore. And I wanted to feel love for myself and I wanted to feel worthy of good things happening to me.
That's beautiful. And that must have been difficult. And I acknowledge how far you've come, that you can feel this good and start wanting to teach other people
It's
and like,
actually mind blowing to come from like, like us as healers, like we have to go through our own struggles before
mhm,
we can help others.
to
And
understand.
sometimes they come at us at like a weird rate. Like I'll be going through something, then all of a sudden I get like all these clients going through the same thing. I'm like, weird, you can't make that up.
Right. Guru Karat and I spoke about that in the other podcast that we did.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
That's so funny. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like it's as much as we're here like as healers to support, even our clients and people that come into our lives help us heal parts as well.
Right.
And so that's just like so beautiful. And I'm always there to support in whatever way that looks, whether it's just through like a message through Instagram or an email, or like I'm always open for like the conversation, or if someone just like literally needs to vent, you can type it out, you can call me, like just have a chat. Like I'm here for you. And it's always, being in when I offer my classes, I always tell them, this is my phone number. Like if you need to get a hold of me, if you have any questions, send me an email. Like here's ways to get hold of me. You don't have to do this by yourself.
You're like a self love sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had actually the last class that I did at Wellington, I've had like um all the women that joined were like sending me messages and be like, hey, like I'm struggling today on this, like how do I navigate it, what do I need to do? And so I would give them advice and give them ways to like work through it. I was like, then at one point, like I had to call one of them, like, hey, like it's okay, like this is what we're gonna do, or this is what you can do, and and just to allow that healing just to continue. And especially if you don't know anybody, it's hard, but
Yeah.
know
But
that I'm
putting
always
yourself
here.
out there, I guess, looking for the things or
Mm-hmm.
something. It's going to present itself however it is going to present itself. And it'll probably be something that you didn't expect.
No.
Always
Mm-hmm.
something that you don't expect, right? So, how can people start to practice self love for themselves? What would be a couple key things that you would give
St-
suggestion of?
Start with forgiveness. Forgive yourself.
Right?
Forgive maybe the people that interacted with you to make you feel a certain way. Um, and and I do understand that forgiving somebody is really difficult. And
I feel that. Go
if
ahead,
you're in a
sorry.
space where you can't necessarily forgive them, allowing them to just dissipate with love and light. Like you might not be able to like fully, full heartedly forgive them, but if you could give them like forgiveness for their own confusions and their own conditionings,
Right.
it's kind of where to start.
I feel the weight of the word forgiveness and the emotion that comes with that. Just because you're forgiving someone doesn't mean that you're condoning what was done. It
No,
doesn't mean that you're forgetting. It doesn't mean that you're going to allow it to happen again. All it means is that you're no longer going to carry that weight yourself, right?
exactly.
And having compassion for someone, going like, I forgive you for doing this to me because I know you don't know any better, right? That's
Hmm.
not. It's okay.
No, it's not okay.
That
But
that
it
that word has feeling, right?
but it releases that energy around it. So yes, things
Mhm.
have happened and yes, they were mean and whatever else they did, but gives it almost releases a weight off your chest
Right.
as much as you can. And that's also part of the healing is like the layers, like you're starting at a layer. So starting off with forgiving and then going into like the things that you're grateful for. Like I'm grateful that through my situation I was able to find a place to live with my dog. It's grateful for the women who basically just showed up out of nowhere to support me, like complete strangers.
Right.
And yeah,
I guess forgiveness of self would be just as difficult sometimes too, based on,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
forgiveness of self, yeah, is almost harder than forgiving others.
yeah, I
Because
should have known better. I should have. I could have. But like, did you really, or did you need to go through that situation to learn that that wasn't for you anymore?
Mhm,
Right? Yeah, it's a tough one.
it is, but that's also
That's
like the layers.
right. So starting with forgiveness, right? Forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. You had mentioned looking for some support, putting
Yeah.
yourself out there to find that different, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So whether it's an energy healer, whether it's going to see a counselor, whether it's, getting, maybe it's even just starting a class, like
Right.
going in and like start moving your body and like starting or, like finding people or like minded people or even a place where like you want to be and you want to fit in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So then how do we find this? I think that's the key.
The self love
It's yeah,
class?
it seems no, not the self-love class,
Okay.
just like how do we find forgiveness? How do we find our strength? How do we find because there's probably it's so easy. I've said this before too. It's so easy for us to sit here and be like, just pick yourself up and do it. And it's like, yeah, but how? How did I find this strength? How did that actually happen? Right? How do you pick yourself up when you're feeling that low?
It's like determination and just knowing that it can't get any worse. Like
It's a
it can't
scary
get,
place to be in though too,
oh,
right?
it totally is.
Yeah.
But just starting with little things. Maybe you're journaling to release. Maybe you have a journal that's like your shit journal. And it's just like all the bad things. Then you have like a positive love journal, like things like good things that have happened to you, whether you're writing a sentence or, like being able to just, because loving is just a matter of releasing, being able to give air to the weight that you're holding within you.
That's beautiful.
Um, yeah, I guess it all like all the different stories are like they're all just so different, but you have to really want it.
Right.
It's not something that is just like gifted here. I'm going to give you self-love. There it's work. There's a lot of tears. There's laughter, but mostly there's tears.
Yeah.
Um and you have to be vulnerable. You have to really want to change, and you have to hold yourself accountable to do that work because no one's going to do it for you.
Right.
Who's going to love you at the end of the day? You. Always. You're always number one.
You got me thinking. I'm trying to. You're always number one. It's like, yeah, I am number one. I think knowing that it's safe to go to some of those places. We try
Totally.
to protect ourselves so deeply from hurting and exploring those areas that we've worked so hard at pushing away. Um, but it's safe to go there 1 minute at a time, one day at a time, slow and steady. And maybe one day
Totally.
you'll feel a little bit more comfortable to dive into one large situation, or,
Hmm.
be there for 5 minutes instead of just one. I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that, well, if I'm not jumping in and going straight to a class, for example, that I'm not doing it right or I'm not doing it good enough. But it's however you feel that day when you wake up that's going to be good enough, because there's no one else there with you. Like, you're the only one in here and the only one in here. And I guess that's kind of the message I'm getting from you, is you're really the only one that matters in the grand scheme of your existence right now.
Totally.
It's very
Totally.
cool.
Yeah,
Well, thank
just
you
like
so much for sharing your journey with us, Amy.
thank you.
Yeah. I have one question for you.
Yes.
What does wellness mean to you?
Hmm. What does wellness mean to me? Overall balance
Hmm,
of the mind, of the heart, of the soul, being able to, yeah, I'm gonna keep it at that. Keep it simple.
that's beautiful. That's perfect. Well, thank you again very much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.